Okay, so I'm just going to do a short intro to the session today. Discover and sketch the Puerto Rican Spindalis. And hello, everybody. I am Lisa Sorensen, and I am the Executive Director of Birds Caribbean. And I just want to give you a little bit of quick background information about our organization in case you're not familiar with us. We are a regional nonprofit organization. And our mission is to raise awareness, promote sound science, and empower our local partners to build a region where people appreciate and conserve and benefit from their thriving bird populations and ecosystems. So many of you may not realize this, but the Caribbean islands are actually a hot spot for biodiversity. We have 171 endemic birds, and these are birds that you can find in the islands and nowhere else in the world. So we have this network of people that are dedicated to studying these birds and conserving them and protecting them and sharing them. And we invite you to join our network. And we also have a journal called the Journal of Caribbean Ornithology, and we publish articles about Caribbean birds in that journal. So we invite you to follow us. What's happening right now is our Caribbean Endemic Bird Festival. And this is a bird festival that we celebrate for 1 month every spring, and we have a different theme every spring. And this year we're celebrating the theme, Loving Birds is Human Nature. So it's celebrating our connection to birds. I think probably all of us have stories that we can tell about birds that we enjoy watching, whether it's in our backyards or going to the beach or the coast or the mountains. The birds are all around us. So it's really fantastic to get to know them and enjoy them. And we probably all have stories to share about different birds that we've seen or maybe some special encounter that you've seen with a bird, you've had with a bird. So we're celebrating that connection that we have with birds this spring. So every day we're doing a new endemic bird of the day. And if you follow our website and on social media, you'll see that we present a different endemic bird almost every day for the whole month. And we give natural history facts. We've got a coloring page that you can download for free, puzzles. You can see videos and audio, listen to audio files of these birds. There's activities for kids. And on our resources page, we also have free downloadable resources like our Endemic Birds of the West Indies coloring book. And those of you who know Christine will recognize her on the back cover there. She did the artwork for this coloring book. And in the coloring book, we have 50 endemic species. And so after we published the coloring book, we've been continuing on with more endemic bird drawings. We're now up to, I think, number 83. So we invite you to follow us on our website and social media to learn about different endemic birds. Another thing that's happening very soon is Global Big Day. How many of you have heard of Global Big Day? It's a big day where everybody all over the world goes out and watches birds. And this can just be 10 minutes in your backyard, or you can spend the entire day running around to different sites and seeing as many birds as you can. So if you haven't participated before, we invite you to join us. It's an event that's sponsored by the Cornell Lab of Ornithology. And we always have teams. So you can check out that bit.ly link and consider joining one of our teams. You can bird from anywhere to be on any of our teams and help us fundraise to support Caribbean bird conservation. So we invite you to check that out. The other thing that I wanted to tell you about that's happening very soon is a conference that we're holding in Puerto Rico this summer. And every 2 years, normally we hold a conference on a different island in the region, and we invite anybody that's interested in birds and nature to come participate in this conference. This time around, we're having the conference with the American Ornithological Society, that's AOS. And we're meeting in San Juan, Puerto Rico. We expect around 700 people to attend. And there will be 5 days of keynote speakers, workshops, symposia, roundtable discussions, networking and social events, field trips to see all kinds of interesting different natural and cultural and historical areas in San Juan. And of course, nature sites where you can go birding and hiking and kayaking and things like that. So check out that bit.ly link, and we hope you will consider joining us in Puerto Rico this summer. And I
Great.
think this is my last slide, just inviting you to follow us, to sign up for our monthly newsletter, follow us on social media, and we'd love to have you join our community and get to know Caribbean birds and interact with us.
Okay, so wonderful. So now we want to introduce Adrianne, and we also want to say that this black box that I will get rid of here, sorry, Eduardo, he's our tech support and Spanish language translator. So he will be putting some things in the chat box as well. So that'll be great. If you have any questions in Spanish, you can put them there. So next, we're going to introduce our president. We just had our executive director, Lisa, and now we've got our president, Adrianne. Great, wonderful. Okay, so you're going to tell us a bit about the Puerto Rican Spindalis, and we're going to use the slides that I have here. So I guess I will make Lisa and myself smaller, and we will make these slides larger. How does that sound?
That's perfect. Thanks, Christine. I'm very excited to be sharing with you here today, this webinar. Thanks, Lisa, and thanks for all the audience that is joining us today. Yeah, so I'm going to give you a brief introduction about the Puerto Rican Spindalis, because then, of course, you want to have all the rest of the time of this webinar to learn how to sketch this magnificent species. But just before starting, I just wanted to point out that the Caribbean Endemic Bird Festival that Lisa just advertised, we are celebrating at this moment. We have you can see the logo in this first slide, and we have an Spindalis in that logo. So next, thank you, Christine. Yep, here you can see the group of 4 species that form the family Spindalidae. This was a species this was considered a single species just a few years ago. But thanks to the techniques that are available now for DNA analysis, when these species were considered just one, they were part of the tanager species, or the tanager family, which is the second largest family in the world and the neotropics. Now we have, thanks to this study since the 2000, we have split the species into 4 species, and also now it's considered a different family. In this slide, you can see the 4 different, of course, you can see they look very similar, but they were split into different species because of different differences they have in the song and in their behavior, for instance, their vocalization and other characteristics. The whole complex is made with 4 species and 8 subspecies. And in the diagram, starting from the top, you can see that the Hispaniolan Spindalis and the rest of the species, they have signs for males and females, because the species are sexually dimorphic, which means that males look different from the females, with some resemblances among the species. So we can see at the top in the center the Hispaniolan Spindalis, the male. Then moving to the right in clockwise direction, we can see the Bahamas race. We can see the Western of the Western Spindalis. Then we can see the Jamaican Spindalis, and going to the top, we have the Puerto Rican Spindalis. The genus is Spindalis, and now they're commonly called the Spindalises. But in the past, they were all considered the striped-headed tanager. Some people still call them by that name. So the species we can see, there's all within the genus, but the only species that is still called Spindalis sena, the original name, is the Western species from Cuba and Bahamas and Cayman Islands. This is the species that has 4 races. And we have the Spindalis dominicensis from Hispaniola. The Jamaican species is called Spindalis nigricephala. And the Puerto Rican Spindalis is called now Spindalis puertoricensis. Next.
Very interesting. Just a moment. I've had a request to make myself smaller here. And did that help, Lisa? I'm not sure. I can't completely get rid of my screen. Okay, well, let's keep going.
Okay, so here we are because we want to learn how to sketch a Puerto Rican Spindalis. And in this image, you can see both male and female. They look different. The male is the individual at the top, is very colorful, and the female is on the bottom of the slide. You can tell she's a little duller. That word is mentioned several times today because females, this is a characteristic that we can see in other bird species, have to spend time in the nest incubating the eggs. So this is a strategy, an evolutionary strategy that females have to escape from depredation, which is very high during the time of incubation of the eggs or egg laying. So you can see that the females are duller in their color and the males are the ones that are very vibrant and colorful. And she's saying here, take a good look because we are here to learn how to sketch a Puerto Rican Spindalis. But before that, we are gonna go through these amazing characteristics that they have in their plumage and also their behavior, vocalizations, and others. Next. So we're gonna start with the males, and I guess this is the one that you will want to learn how to draw, I guess. So
Yes.
if this was a test, and Christine is asking you for your sketches at the end of this webinar, we want to make sure you get these 10 characteristics in your sketches. So make sure you follow them here. We're gonna start with the bill. Look at the bill or the beak, it's black. And if we want to be accurate in the characteristics of the species, we have to make sure we have the distinctive black and white striped head. Look that in the head, it has two white lines, one above the eye, one under the eye, and that they stop in the neck where you can see a bright orange neck color. But notice that the neck color doesn't go all the way around. You can see the orange at the back and you can see it again in the front of the neck, but it's interrupted. Did you get that?
Yes.
Okay, moving to the back.
Oh, no.
We have yellowish green upper parts. And then we have the wings and the tail, which are gray-black, but with white edges. You can see the lines going along the feathers in the wings and the tail. You can see the feet that are black, flanks in the underparts to the sides that are streaked with gray, and a very bright orange yellow, yellow in the chest, in the underparts. Look also in the wing, it's got like a small orange patch on the shoulders. But we're still missing two more characteristics. Under the bill, it's got a white chin, and in this individual, since it's to the side, you cannot tell that under the white chin, it's got like a orange or yellow throat also. So these are 10 characteristics that you need to make sure you have them right when you do your sketches. So do you think you got this?
Yes. Now, Adrianne, I have a question for you. I know there's the 4 species and they're pretty much on different islands. So I guess if you're on a specific island, you would know what species. But if they were all side by side in a museum, is it pretty difficult to tell the 4 apart?
Well, maybe for someone that is not very familiar with the species, they could look very, very similar. But when you start looking them into detail, you can tell them apart.
Good. Well, I'm glad they're on different islands. It makes it a lot easier.
Yeah, of course, this difference might be very slight, not very significant. But there are some differences, and they are even different in size. They all range from 15 to 17 centimeters, but some species tend to go to the larger size or to the small. So there are a few very small differences between them.
I see. Now, I want to remind people to ask questions in the chat box, because when Adrianne is done with her presentation, she is leaving for another event. So if you have any questions you want her to answer live about this species and what it looks like and other things about its lifestyle, then please ask those in the chat box. Okay, should we go to the next slide?
Yes, please.
Fabulous.
You saw them in the drawing, but this is how the males look in nature. You can see them through the side, the image in the left, where you can see all the details in the head, the back, the neckline, and also the white edges on the wings. But in the individual in the right, you can see it from the front, so you can see the yellow, the bright yellow underparts. You can see the yellow in the throat and also the white chin. Next. Now let's go see the females. We have already mentioned that they have to spend too much time in the nesting season, incubating the eggs and raising the chicks, so they don't need to have, and they don't want to have colorful plumages. So there are some characteristics that we can tell that is a female of the species that are similar to the male, like the eye stripes, the head stripes. It's got the two stripes, but you can tell they are very faint. And in fact, in the field, maybe you cannot see the white stripe on the top of the eye, above the eye. Maybe just it looks like a mustache with the eye stripe under the eye. The bill is grayish. The upper parts, instead of being yellow-green in the male, they are olive brown. The edges of the wings are here too. You can see the pale whitish edges in the wings, but the wings and the tail are brownish instead of dark gray or black. And in the chest, you can see difference also, because instead of being bright orange, it is greenish yellow to whitish breast, and it's got whitish on the abdomen and with gray streaks that are very evident. Okay, next. This is how a female will look in the field. You can see the streak underparts are very, very notorious. You can see the white stripe under the eye, also very, very big, like if it was a mustache, as I mentioned. But there is something interesting. Juveniles look like females. Those baby birds that are born in a season, the juveniles, they resemble females that first year. And it's not until the second year when they mold the plumage and start looking like adult males, if there are males, of course. So take a look here, a very good look. And in the next slide, we're gonna see a juvenile. Okay, if you saw the previous photos, they had streaked underparts, but they didn't have this yellow. So, as we mentioned, juveniles resemble females, but young males are similar to adult males dorsally in the upper parts and start showing bright yellow underparts. So, is this individual a male or a female? Write that down in the chat.
Okay, let's have some audience participation. Any guesses, male or female? Sometimes it takes a moment for the chat to catch up. Oh, we got a few people. Oh, okay, macho. Sí, is it macho y hembra?
Uh-huh. That's good.
Dos machos.
Uh-huh. Okay, we got it right.
Good.
That's perfect. Thank you. Let's go to the next one.
Perfecto.
So let's talk a bit about the habitat and diet. The Spindalises are frugivores mainly. Their favorite food is berries and ripe fruit. And they live wherever there are fruiting trees. at all elevations in the island of Puerto Rico, woodlands, forests, garden, patches of trees in urban areas, and plantations. So you can, from this that I just told you, they're common. But in addition to eating fruit, sometimes also they can be seen feeding on insects and leaves. And this is something very interesting. This is not a normal food item for frugivores. But we have a lot of photos and evidence that they ingest leaves. So next slide, we're gonna see a video of the Spindalis feeding. That is a male, and it seems to be enjoying those leaves, don't you think?
It's good to have a little salad.
Yeah. Okay, we're gonna see another video of the Spindalis feeding. The next slide.
Oh, sorry, I thought I did. There we go. There we go.
Yeah. So this is either a female or a juvenile male, and it's feeding also actively. You can see it's feeding on leaves too.
Now, Adrianne, would they be eating the insects more when they're nesting to help give the nestlings some protein, or is it random throughout the year?
Well, they feed mostly on fruit, as I mentioned, but some bird species, they do that. They supplement their diet with insects during times of the year when they have more demands of energy, like when they're nesting. That happens with hummingbirds. But in the Spindalis, we are not sure because these haven't been studied in detail. But the thing is that they may eat insects or other invertebrates if they find them associated with the fruit, of course.
Sure, okay.
We can see, okay, now we're gonna talk about their song. The males sing mostly from the canopy of the trees, the treetops, and the song is not as elaborate as in other bird species. This is something more simple. It's like a series of 3-note phrases that we're gonna hear now. Can you play the song? And it's very high pitch, about 8 kilohertz or higher. Did you hear that?
I can hear it, yes. Can you hear it?
Yes. I ask you because some people start losing their hearing at some point, and bird watchers and ornithologists cannot hear this sound.
Ah, yes.
Females do other kinds of songs, mainly whispers from low-lying dense thickets. So they don't sound the same.
Well, I'm glad I can hear that. I must not be too old yet.
This is like a hearing exam.
Yes.
Okay, we can go to the next slide and see them live and singing. In this video, you can see a female feeding on Cecropia fruits. This is the trumpet tree. And you can see her feeding. Then there is a male singing in the back. But something happened here. The male brought food, so probably this is not a female. It might be a juvenile.
I see, yes. What a nice male there.
Yeah, feeding
Cecropia fruits are so popular with all the bird species. Wonderful, wonderful food item for many birds in the Central and South America and the Caribbean. Very widespread plant.
Mm-hmm. Yes, we can go to the next one.
Let's see, is that the next one? No, was there another video?
No, we are going to
This-
the behavior. Yes.
There we go. Yes. I've seen this behavior.
Maybe some people have seen this. The males, when they see their image in a mirror or a glass, they think it's another male. This species is very territorial. Both females and males defend their territories, but males are more aggressive. And if they see the image of another male, like in these photos, you can see them in a car mirror, they start attacking the image. And this is something that when people see it, sometimes they don't like birds in their cars because they will get dirty. But the thing is that this is also very interesting to see a bird in your car trying to fight with the image. And in this photo in the left, you can see him at the other side of the glass. And I was looking at it and thinking, what is he thinking? Like, hi there. And the other one, I put a bubble, like, who is this guy in my territory?
It is special to see them so close up, though. Yeah, that's lucky.
Okay, let's go to the next. The breeding is not too much studied, so we don't know a lot of the details, but we know that they build like an open cup with 2 to 4 pale eggs that have spots on them, and that they are monogamous, so the pairs stay together and they breed like most of tropical birds in spring. Maybe some species, some pairs starting early, like in January, but most of them from March to the end of June. So we need more people to help us study this species. Next.
Okay.
For instance, we have the International Union for the Conservation of Nature. They have categorized this species as least concern, which means that the population might be stable, not like in the endangered or threatened species. But the thing is that the species was very common and widespread throughout the island. But we have here some estimates from a long-term bird banding study in the dry forest in the south of Puerto Rico, Guanica, and they found that the capture rate of the Puerto Rican Spindalis decreased from 1989, when they got 1.86 individuals per net line per hour, to 0.56 in 2010. So we need more study. There haven't been a population size study for the whole island, so we are data deficient.
Yeah, like with a lot of species.
Exactly. So next, we are finishing now. There are some interesting facts. In Spanish, the name of the Puerto Rican Spindalis is Reina Mora, and it's a beautiful name, but it doesn't make sense for the males because Reina in Spanish is the translation for queen. So the males are not happy with this. He should be Rey Moro, not Reina Mora.
Sí, claro.
And since it's a frugivore, it's a very important species for forest regeneration. Whenever we have lost forest or habitat, frugivore species, they bring the seeds when they feed on them, and they leave the droppings elsewhere. So this is one of the most important frugivores since it's abundant in the island, and we should protect it. And another interesting fact is that searching through the internet, I have found that Reina Moras is seen to be a business bird. It's got so many companies with their names and different products. I just pointed out here, there is a recent beer, local, that is called Reina Mora. And you can see the beautiful logo and the beautiful, the art in the can. So it seems like it's doing well, the Reina Moras in Puerto Rico.
Well, I hope they should be getting a kickback for some habitat conservation.
Yeah, that would be very good. So we are finishing now, and I just wanted to thank Christine, Lisa, and all of you for coming to this presentation. And just want to invite you again to join Birds Caribbean. In the next slide, you can see our address is birdscaribbean.org. And I also forget that these are resources where you can learn more about the Puerto Rican Spindalis. The Birds of the World is like an encyclopedia that is online. You can get access to all this information. If you join Birds Caribbean for free, you can access all the accounts of all the species in the world. And this is the book of Birds of the West Indies. Is a very recent publication, and the author, Herbert Raphael, has a new edition of the Birds of Puerto Rico book too. So you can consult these books. And the next slide, you have there my email just in case you need a communication. And I just wanted to leave you with this beautiful sketch that I found from another artist, from Art Magenta, of the Puerto Rican Spindalis. And I hope all of you, following the instructions from Christine, are able to do such a beautiful painting. Thank you.
Great. Well, before you leave, just want to ask one more time in the chat box, does anyone have any questions for Adrianne? She's very knowledgeable, and she is the president of Birds Caribbean, so she should be able to answer any questions you have. Anybody have any questions? Now, you can always ask questions over on the Facebook page, too. I think we're going live. So wonderful. So thank you so much. It's been wonderful to meet you, and we hope to see you again sometime. And yeah, I don't see any questions coming through, so they can always get a hold of you at that email address. You could drop that in the chat box if you want. And yeah, I can't wait to get back to the Caribbean and see all those Spindalises and the other fun 171 endemics. So Erid has a question here.
Yeah, the time of the breeding season is in spring. So at this time of the year, they should be breeding.
Yes, through June, right?
Yeah, so this is the time, like from March to April, May, when most birds are actively breeding. Is the best times for you to go around. And since I mentioned this species should be common in gardens, plantations, even in areas it's close to urban areas, like in the suburbs, you may be able to find this nest.
Fabulous. Okay. Well, I guess we'll say goodbye and let you get off to your next presentation. Okay, so
and take care, everyone. Bye.
Okay, now we will continue on with the drawing part. Who's ready to draw? Tell us in the chat box if you're ready. If you haven't met me already, I'm Christine Elder, and I'm a naturalist, an artist, and environmental educator, and I love drawing and painting birds, and I have online bird classes too. And I love to travel, especially in the Caribbean. As Lisa mentioned, I illustrated the Caribbean birds of the endemic Birds of the West Indies coloring book. So I did these paintings for that. And here's a few other paintings from Central and South America, just so you can get an example of some of my artwork. And here is that Endemic Birds of the West Indies, and you can find that on their website, the Birds Caribbean website. Also, we've done a whole other series of workshops in the past where I've taught you how to draw Caribbean birds. And I just wanted to copy into the chat box the link to the Birds Caribbean YouTube channel. Here's their YouTube channel. They've got lots of wonderful videos, and the videos from our past workshops are there, and this workshop will be there as well. Okay, so let's keep going. Eduardo is ready as well. Wonderful. So our suggested materials are a pencil and a paper. And if you were able to download this high resolution image, that would be great. But don't worry if you haven't. You can always do that later. There is a download link on this page right below me. There's a little blue or green button that says download Spindalis image here. And that's where you can download that PDF later if you haven't done so already. Okay, and so as Adrianne was saying, she mentioned all those field marks, spent a good amount of time on that, so we don't have to spend too much time on that. But I did want to just remind you, now we aren't going to have time to go into color. That can take a long time. We really are going to focus mainly on the silhouette and the correct proportions of the bird, and then you can spend as much time as you'd like in using any medium you want, like colored pencils or watercolors, to add the coloration. So do try to remember these field marks. And you did get those links already to online where to find out more information about what this bird looks like if you forget what colors the field marks are, and if you can't download the high resolution image. But do remember they got that black crown and black cheek and black area here. They've got the 2 white stripes, the yellow throat, and the orange kind of broken neck collar. And then the rest of their body, well, I did want to mention that all of these colors really have a lot to do with that fruit eating diet. So many birds in the tropics can focus on eating fruits all year long, and fruits have a lot of carotenoids in them. And when the birds ingest those, they are able to put those in their feathers as the feathers grow. So lots of yellows and reds and oranges in birds are made from those carotenoids that come from their diet. And so in terms of the rest of the body, the top part is yellowish green. And of course, in the female, her whole body is more of a subtle muted green. Now, the breast is yellow and the wings are black. And like lots of things that are black, they are black from a melanin pigment, and that's a pigment that helps strengthen structures. So often you have wings and tails that are black and beaks that are dark as well. And then you notice that the body, that is the wings, are pretty short. They kind of stop at the end of the body here near the upper and lower tail coverts. And then the tail is pretty short as well. So it's a pretty compact bird. You know, they don't migrate. They're endemic and they just live in generally one habitat in one island. So they don't have to do a lot of flying around. They don't have to have real fancy wings or tail. So just notice that they have kind of medium length wing that ends right here. And then their tail is just medium length as well. And then their legs are kind of your general songbird legs. And in this pose that we're drawing today, basically all we're seeing is the halix, or the back toe that is wrapping around the branch. Okie dokie. Now, when we're drawing, I want you to kind of think about a few things. One is to keep your sketch, your pencil moving very lightly and loosely. So I don't want you to push down real hard like if you're writing your name. I want you to keep things light and loose, and maybe even put your little pinky out, which gives you some stability and helps you with accuracy. And I want you to really keep that pencil moving and avoid the urge to draw a line and then erase and draw a line and erase. Because in the field, if you're trying to do that, your bird will be long gone and you won't be able to draw them at all. So I really encourage you to kind of pretend you don't have an eraser and to just start off very, very lightly. And then as you get a little bit farther on in the drawing, as I'll demonstrate in a moment, you can start pressing a little harder and a little harder and a little harder and a little harder. So you can get a lot of different values or levels of darknesses from one pencil. But we all start off super light so you can go fast and you don't have to worry that you're making too many mistakes that you're not going to be able to get rid of. And you always want to be glancing pretty quickly between your subject and your sketch. And that's so that you're always making sure that you're referring back to your subject, whether it's a photograph like we're drawing today, or whether it's the bird in the field in Puerto Rico. So like you would look at the bill and then draw the bill, look at the head and draw the head, and back and forth, really making sure you're double checking that you're drawing from observation and not from memory or imagination. And then lastly, I want you to just have fun, right? I don't want you to be too concerned about perfectionism. For me, the whole value of drawing is that once you've drawing something, you never forget it, and you'll always be able to identify it in the field because you spent so much time looking at it. The process of drawing really makes you focus your attention and look at it much longer than you ever might, with your binoculars. And that helps as both a birder and an artist. So just have fun with this process and just appreciate how much you learn about the bird when you're done, regardless of what your drawing looks like, okay? And, there are so many other bigger global issues in this world right now that your least of your worries should be making a pretty picture. This today should be just a moment where you can really have fun and enjoy yourself. And so I have this process called my 6-step roadmap to sketching success, where I have you think about these 6 things while you're drawing, no matter whether it's the spindalis or a hummingbird or a tree or a deer in the forest. So I like people to think about blocking in your basic shapes first. So thinking about the triangles, circles, ovals, that kind of thing. And as you're starting to draw those different parts, thinking about their proportions to each other. So like how long the bill is to the length of the whole head, or how big the head is compared to the size of the body. Then I'd like you to think about alignments, like what structures are aligned to each other. Are some of them parallel to each other, or are they perpendicular to each other? And then as you continue, think about negative shapes. So that means the shapes that aren't the thing you're drawing, like the this blue area between the tail, between the legs, and then down here, I filled that in with blue, but it would be white here, as you see over here, right? So look at those. Then also think of angles as you're drawing. So when you're in math class, you might think of a 30-degree angle or a 90-degree angle, or like on this hummingbird, the 120-degree angle or so with the bill and the forehead. And then I like to think of the idea of flow lines. So keeping in mind kind of how your pencil is flowing over the object, and whether that's a smooth transition or kind of more of a jagged one. Yeah. And so I always think of those 6 things, not always in any particular order. I just keep thinking of those as I'm drawing something. Okay, and so like, for example, here's the bird we're drawing and my 6 steps. So you might think of blocking in the head and the body, looking at the proportion of the bill to the depth of the head, or maybe the proportion of the length of the tail compared to the length of the whole body, looking at what things are aligned to each other. So like the 2 legs are not parallel to each other, right? They're kind of making 2 different angles. And that gives you this negative shape here that's like a triangle, right? And then you can also think about angles as you go around this bird. So like the angle of this leg to the body is a little bit greater than 90 degrees, whereas the angle of this leg to the chest is something like maybe 10 degrees. This would make a very skinny triangle in there, right? Now, if you have any questions as we're going along, please ask. We're going to move on to the step-by-step drawing demonstration in just a moment. But I did want to mention a few parts of the wing because that's a part that is really intimidating to people. And you don't necessarily have to put all these details in, but I assume that most people watching here today are birders. You might be a beginning birder or a more serious birder. And either way, whether you're a birder or an artist or both, it's good to start to understand the parts because once you do that, it's easier to see those on the bird and to draw those. And so there's lots of other parts on the bird, but the most complicated structure is to draw is the wing. So this first row of feathers are called the median secondary coverts. And they actually kind of overlap in an opposite direction than all the rest of them. The rest of these overlap in the same way as the shingles on the roof of your house. So starting with the greater secondary coverts here in gold, they overlap like this. Okay. And then the blue alula, that is analogous to your finger. So that's a little set of 3 feathers that are like the finger of the bird, and they can open and close that, especially when they're flying, to help them turn and land. The primary coverts are feathers that cover the primaries, so they have a good name there. Whereas the secondary coverts are covering the secondaries. So this purple area are the secondaries, and some people separate out the first 3 of those that are shorter and call those the tertials. Okay, so we got a little bit in the weeds there, but I am a scientific illustrator by training, so I like to have people really understand that. And I find that the longer someone really looks at a bird and tries to understand its structure, the easier it will be to draw. So I hope you're ready to draw now. So we've looked at this bird very well. So now we're going to start blocking in where the head is. And you'll see my line is very, very light. So don't necessarily try to see these lines, but try to make your own lines of the basic circle of the head and sort of the oval of the body. And then the tail, which is sort of a long rectangle. Darkening up the back a little bit and always looking back and forth at our photograph. Darkening the forehead, starting a little triangle for the bill. And you see I'm not pushing hard at all, and that's why I'm able to move quickly. I'm double checking the width of my body, and it looks pretty close. Now I'm going to draw the angles that the legs will be. So you see this first, his left leg is straighter and the right leg is more of an angle facing to the right. So we're just going to draw 2 lines there. And then we're going to draw basically where the branch is that he's standing on. How we doing so far? Now you can always watch the replay of this if you want to follow along and watch this. You can always watch it again, and I think you can even play it more slowly if you'd like to. So you can always get back to the replay of this event pretty soon after we finish to rewatch any of this and watch all those slides from Adrianne, who was showing you more about the field marks. Okay, so let's keep going. Now you see we have this very light outline, and now we're going to start trying to get a little bit more accurate and drawing with a little bit more pressure on the pencil. I'm going to focus on the head now. So I've given you a close-up of the head to the left, if you notice, so that you can see it really well. I'll freeze the video for just a moment so you can look at that. So again, you're noticing all these field marks, but the first thing we're going to do is just to get the proportion, kind of the outline or silhouette of the head. And then we'll mark where these field marks are, all these stripes on the head. And you'll notice their bill has this little overhanging hook there that probably helps them to get into fruits and get out all that nice juicy flesh and seeds. So we're going to focus on drawing the head now. I'm noticing how long it is from the neck to the bill, just to double check my proportions. Noticing that head is kind of flat. So I'm making it a little bit flatter than I'd started off with. It's pretty flat and long. So I'm making it a little bit longer. And I'm not doing any erasing yet. I'm just darkening up the lines I like, and we'll erase later. Now we're noticing where the bill is. It's kind of facing down towards that branch. And it's pretty close to the branch. The bird's leaning down, kind of like he's looking at something on the ground, or maybe looking at some fruit below him. So I draw a line that indicates the middle of the bill where the mouth opens. And then I draw sort of the triangle of the bill and double checking how long it is. So I keep always double checking my proportions before I get too far, so I'm not really far off. Now you'll notice we are looking at the bird from below, like a lot of the time when the bird is in the tree. So we're seeing the bill at sort of an interesting angle. This is a little bit more complex angle because we're actually looking at the underside of the bill. The lower bill is actually made up of two parts that are kind of cemented together or glued together at the distant edge here. And so we're looking at the underneath of the throat here, and just one part of the lower bill that's facing us here. And that other part goes around the back here of the throat. So we are looking at the underneath of the bill a little bit. So this is going to look a little bit different than a bird you're looking at exactly from the side, like maybe those photographs we saw of the bird when he was at the window pecking at the mirror. So let's keep going now. So now noticing the shape of the upper bill and how it curves over a little bit and gets pointy, curves over the lower bill. And you'll notice there's this little triangle of flesh at the base of the bill. That's why I'm drawing here now, is the feathers kind of go towards the bill in this little triangle, and actually right at the base of the bill, that's where their nostrils are. It's really easy to forget that birds have nostrils because they're generally covered by feathers. It's also easy to forget the birds have ears as well, and the ears are back here covered by these auricular feathers. So anyway, getting the base of the upper bill here. And then noticing how it arches down and overlaps the bottom part of the bill just a teensy bit. And the upper bill is a little narrower than the lower bill. I probably have it a bit too narrow right there, but it's okay. Now we're going to work on the lower bill. The shapes of bills are really important to focus on when you're drawing and identifying birds, because that will sometimes help you put them in a family and really know what type of diet they have. And so the lower bill is similar to the upper bill in having feathers coming towards it in this sort of V-like shape. So that's what I've drawn here. And then the lower bill is kind of like the keel of a boat shape. So it's a different shape than the upper bill. And then drawing that neck, double checking the width of the bill, then drawing the neck sort of soft because those feathers are sort of fluffed up a little bit. Now we're finally going to do a little cleaning up here of our lines there. So if you need to do that, kind of get rid of some of those tri lines, as I call them, and just leave the darkest ones you feel most comfortable with. So now I'm pushing a little bit harder. Making those lines a little looser in the bottom with those feathers. Double checking my bill. Looks pretty good. Now we're going to place the eye. And the eye is kind of high on the head because, again, we're looking at the bird from below. So it's a little bit higher than it might be. And I'm double checking where to put that based on how far it is from the top of the head and from the front of the head. And then noticing how large it is. Generally, songbirds have an eye that's about the same height as their upper bill, but is really variable depending on species. Like a hummingbird has a much bigger eye than its bill. But that's a general rule for a lot of songbirds anyway, is that the diameter of the eye sort of matches the upper bill. And of course, that's when you're looking at it from front ways, not from below like we are now. So just see how I keep looking back and forth and double checking. Now we want to put those field marks in. So we got noticing where that neck kind of meets the shoulder at that orange line so that we can add those black marks and the white streaks on the face. Now this isn't always as exact as the shape of the bird that we just drew because their feathers can be fluffed up or they can be pressed down depending on the weather. And they can look a little bit different on every bird. And of course, the color can look different based on how healthy the bird is, how much wonderful fruit it's been eating to give it those beautiful yellow and orange colors. And so I'm just trying to outline now. And just doing that really lightly because later on you'll be adding color if you want. So now putting the upper eye stripe, the supercilium area stripe. Now, if I were trying to sketch this bird in the field, I wouldn't be doing all this detail. I'd be a lot lighter and looser. But we are trying to do this drawing a little bit more detailed so that we really learn the bird and learn these shapes and the field marks. Now I'm just darkening up those blacks just a little bit. You don't have to do that now. I'm just trying to keep track of where my blacks are compared to my whites. You may want to complete your drawing in pencil or colored pencil or watercolor later on. But we only have a half hour total really to do this bird. So we have to move on to the body and the shoulders. We got the neck And then the angle changes slightly right there where the wing starts, because we're looking at the shoulder, that deep sort of olive green shoulder is a little bit higher than the orange neck. And then it goes down, continues down to the upper tail coverts that overlap the tail right there. Then the lower part of the body, starting at the neck, we're going to get that belly, and going back towards the lower tail coverts. So I'm just double checking my width. And we're going to just ignore where the legs are right now and just trying to get the oval of that body. And the angle changes right there at the vent to then become those lower tail coverts. So the upper and lower tail coverts are covering the base of the tail where it meets the body. Then we've got the tail, which is pretty much of a rectangle. And we see the tail. We're looking at the tail from below. So we see kind of two parts of the tail. We see a little bit of the upper part right now that I'm drawing. And then there's this other part that's kind of in shadows. And I'm double checking my width there. Pretty close. So then we've got the other set of tail feathers that are we're looking at from below that are in shadow. And I'm just going to shadow those in a little bit, even though they're actually lighter in the picture. It just helps me. You can see that they are in shadow underneath. So now I'm going to clean up a little bit of my edges again so that I can now start double checking and really firming those up. I might have made them a little bit too fat, but it doesn't really matter because depending on the weather, they can fluff up their feathers and look a lot fatter. So you don't have to worry about that too much, whether your bird is a little bit skinnier or fatter than the one in the photo, because if it's cold outside, they'll fluff up their feathers and look fatter. So some things on a bird have to be more exact, like the shape of the bill, and other things like the outline of the belly can be different, which changes with behavior and weather. Okay, so now I've decided that this outline is pretty close, and we're just about ready to add our legs. And then lastly, we'll do the wing, which is the more complex part. So I hope you guys are following along. I see most of you are still here, so that's good. Now I've got a close-up here showing you. We're going to draw the legs now, and I'm just trying to notice where that leg is coming out and notice how far back it is from the bill. So that's going to help me place the bird's right leg. And the base of the leg is covered by these fluffy belly feathers, so you don't completely see it. But I do need to erase the belly line there because that sort of ankle area is in front of the belly. And then you see the very sharp angle that leg is making as it's holding on to the branch. So there's a negative shape in there that's a very narrow triangle. And we're looking at the leg from the back. So the three toes that wrap around the front of the branch are hidden. So we're not seeing those, if you notice. We're just seeing kind of the bend in the wrist, I guess you could call it, where those toes would come out. And then all we see is the back toe or halix, and it's and its claw. And again, a very sharp angle there, and in little tiny negative yellow shape between the leg and the halix. And then we'll add a claw. And this claw is pretty much foreshortened since we're looking at it straight away there, almost directly from the back. The left leg even more so. Noticing how that there's a bend there in the front where the three toes wrap around. Now we're going to notice how close the left leg is to the right. Noticing there's this nice triangle of negative shape between the two legs, and that the left leg is much straighter than the right. So noticing how long it is, measuring that. Noticing coming out at a different angle. And the base of it is also covered with these fluffy feathers. And then it comes down to the unfeathered gray part of the leg. And then it widens to where the toes are coming off. And then you can darken the rest of the branch. So there's a fluffy feathers at the base of the leg, and then a whole bunch of other fluffy feathers in shadow that are surrounding that leg. Firming up the unfeathered leg, and then adding that back halix toe. So it's facing straight towards us. So it's foreshortened. All we see is kind of an oval and then a very skinny claw. Now, it wasn't until I finished this video that I realized that you can actually see the bird's other toes wrapping around that branch. So if you wanted to add those, you could. You can see basically, I think, just like the middle toe of the three toes that face forward. You guys see that? The front nail, as I'm labeling it. So you can add that if you want later. Okay, we have to move on because we got to finish up. We're over time. We're doing the shoulder now and the parts of the wing. And those are those parts I color-coded for you in the slideshow. I'm measuring the length of the whole wing from the shoulder to the end of the primaries. They have pretty short wings that don't hardly even reach the end of the tail coverts. Now I'm measuring the width of the whole wing so that I can kind of get just this big triangle of where the wings are. Very lightly. And then the upper part of the wing, noticing that. And so you see a lot of the greenish yellow body feathers above the black and white wings. I'm pointing with my left hand to outline the kind of the area where those greenish yellow back feathers are going to be. Then we're going to start with those first layer of coverts. Oh, Isaiah, thanks for joining us. Come back and watch the replay to finish up the wing if you'd like. Now the next layer of coverts. Then the alula. And the alula and the primary coverts aren't edged in white, so they're a little harder to see. So you might just want to follow along with my drawing. They blend into each other a little bit more. Now, the upper wings there, we're drawing the tertials. So those are the 3 top feathers of the secondaries. And then there's this pretty sharp angle right here where the secondaries stop before the longer primaries. I hope you can see that. So I'm pointing at that right here. The 3 tertials are going to go there, and there's an angle where all the rest of the secondaries pile up, and they generally go over to that whole pile of secondaries. Oh, sorry. I'm finishing up the outline of the primaries. Primaries get a little bit wider up towards the front of the bird. So this is what I always do if I'm going to do the details of the wing is I get those basic parts of those feather groups first, and then I start drawing the individual ones. So now we're going to start with that first layer of coverts, those lesser coverts, and those overlap in an opposite direction of the rest of the series. Then we're going to do the next layer of coverts. And the first ones are shorter, and each one will overlap, sort of like the shingles on the roof of a house. And I'm not counting them exactly. I think there's generally about 10 of them. Now darkening those up. Now looking at the alula, the set of feathers with the alula, there's 3 of those. Again, those are where the thumb is of the bird, the skeleton. Now we're doing this set of tertials. So there's tertial means 3. So there's 3 of those edged in white. And the third one is the longest, and it is part of the pile that is the rest of the secondaries. So then we're just going to add a bunch of lines. We're not going to count or anything. I think there's about 6 more of those. Yeah, but you generally can't see those in the field, but you can see some of those white outlines, which helps to delineate the individual feathers. Now I'm doing the primaries. And this family of birds is part of a larger group of birds called the 9 primaried aucenes. And that means birds that have 9 primaries that are visible instead of 10 that are kind of the more usual. And they get narrower right there. Usually the first few primaries are narrower in a bird. That's called emargination. So they're a little bit narrower. So we're just about done. We're just going to add a little bit fluffy feathers there because we want to have you go ahead and finish your bird in color and take your time, because color takes a lot of time and a lot of layering. And I encourage you to really make sure that you really like the this outline or silhouette and you're happy with those shapes before you move on to adding all those wonderful colors, those yellows and golds and beautiful muted greens and blacks. So just firming up the outlines a little bit before we finish. So I know that was fast. I know that was a lot of details, and you can always keep going with this, watching the replay again. I can hear those pencils going, so I hope you're still working on your sketch. Eduardo said share them and add the tag at Birds Caribbean and hashtag CEBF 2022. That stands for the Caribbean Endemic Bird Festival 2022, which is what we're celebrating all this month and why we're here today sharing one of our favorite Caribbean endemics, the Puerto Rican Spindalis. Thank you so much for joining us and taking part in this Caribbean Endemic Bird Festival. So I'm going to get going, and thanks again to our executive director, Lisa Sorensen, and our president, Adrianne, who did the presentation on the Puerto Rican Spindalis. So great. Take care, everybody, and see y'all next time. Bye-bye.